Those 400 containers are federal evidence. Put the notice down!
I am keeping it from blowing into the yard.
Then keep your hands off the text. What did I just tell you?
That code is for a tank.
You clean this corridor. You do not review federal entries.
A tank stores something. These machines clean water.
How do you know what is inside?
Clearhaven P-Series municipal purification systems. 2 pumps, a membrane rack, pressure controller, steel buffer vessel.
The vessel is a component, not the article.
400 containers were seized at 5:42 this morning because someone changed the classification before arrival. At 7:30 tonight, the entire shipment moves to the federal holding warehouse. Until then, no one without authority touches the notice, the files, or the cargo.
Pine Marsh says its temporary water systems fail safe at 10 tonight.
22 dialysis centers, Grant said. 86 patients in one network alone. I know the stakes. Micah tapped the circled code. Then you know this is costing you time you do not have. Grant's jaw tightened. Megan, take him back through the contractor gate. She did not move. What heading would you use? 8421. Subheading, water filtration or purification. Why not classify by the steel vessel? Because the vessel does not give the system its essential character. Megan opened the tariff search on her tablet. Her finger stopped. Read the commercial description, Micah said. She read aloud, integrated water purification machinery with buffer storage. Now read the entry description. Steel reservoir units? Those are not the same article. Grant looked from the screen to Micah's uniform, then to the name stitched over his pocket. Where did you learn this? Megan had already opened an old ruling attached to Clearhaven's importer profile. She read one line, then read it again. Classification analysis prepared by M. Benton. The corridor went quiet. Micah took his broom from the paper. Grant said, "Is that you?" Micah slid the red pencil back into his pocket. A code is only honest when it matches what is inside. The security door opened behind him. A uniformed officer waited to escort him out. Micah turned toward the contractor gate without answering Grant's question. But Megan kept reading. The ruling was 6 years old. It covered the same manufacturer, the same product family, and a system that looked almost identical to the machines locked in the yard. At the bottom of the first page, under the name M. Benton, one line had been entered by hand. Licensed customs broker. Status inactive. Grant caught up with Micah before the security door closed. Wait. Micah stopped with one hand on the broom handle. Did you write that ruling? I prepared the analysis. Customs issued the ruling. Then why are you sweeping my annex? Micah's eyes stayed on the floor between them. A strip of rainwater had blown beneath the door. He pushed it toward the drain. Because the floor still needs sweeping. Grant did not appreciate the answer. Megan, conference room. Bring the ruling and the current entry. Mr. Benton, you may sit in for 10 minutes. You will not touch a federal system, and you will not represent yourself as counsel. Micah leaned the broom against the wall. 10 minutes is enough to tell you whether you are holding the wrong goods for the right reason. Grant opened the door with his badge. That sentence is exactly why I may regret this. Inside the conference room, the seizure file covered 3 screens. 400 line items, 400 container numbers, 400 seal numbers. The importer of record was Clearhaven Municipal Systems, a company that supplied water treatment equipment to rural hospitals and emergency clinics. Caleb Sutton appeared on the wall monitor from a law office in Savannah. He wore a dark suit and the strained expression of a man who had already spent an hour being told no. Acting Director Hollis, Caleb said, we are prepared to amend the entry and post an additional bond. The discrepancy does not justify physical seizure of medical infrastructure. Grant sat at the end of the table. It was not a discrepancy. Someone with administrator access removed the existing ruling reference, changed the article description, and replace the classification less than 4 hours before arrival, then treat it as a filing error. A filing error does not usually include an audit trail deletion. Caleb glanced toward Micah. Who is that? A contractor who recognized the product. Micah said, you have the invoice? Caleb frowned. I was not speaking to you. Then answer Director Hollis. Did Clearhaven sell filtration machinery or empty steel tanks? The equipment includes steel storage vessels. That was not the question. Grant raised a hand. Mr. Benton. Micah stopped. Megan placed the commercial invoice on the center screen. The product description called each unit an integrated purification system. The entry description called each unit a steel reservoir. Grant said, "Mr. Sutton, your client declared one article while invoicing another. That is not solved by promising to use the better description next time." Caleb leaned toward his camera. "Release the shipment under bond and verify after delivery. These units are going to dialysis centers. If the paperwork was manipulated to hide a tariff issue, the bond may address revenue. If it was manipulated to hide a product issue, releasing first could put defective equipment into patient service." Caleb went still. Micah noticed. "You did not know about the description change," Micah said. "I know my client's position." "That is not what I said." Grant looked at Caleb. "Did you authorize the amendment?" "No." Megan opened the user access log. The change came from a Clearhaven compliance administrator at 2:08 this morning. Caleb looked off screen, likely toward someone else in the room. Grant said, "Who has that access?" "I will need to ask my client." "Ask now." The monitor went dark as Caleb muted both camera and sound. Micah studied the old ruling. He did not sit. His right hand rested lightly on the back of the empty chair beside Megan. "This is only page 1, he said. Megan scrolled. "There are 11 attachments." "There were more." She looked at him. "How many?" Micah's fingers tightened against the chair. "I do not remember." Grant heard the lie. So did Megan. Before either could press him, the conference phone lit up. "Pine Marsh Dialysis Network," Grant answered on speaker. "This is Hollis." A woman's voice came through, controlled and tired. "June Maddox. I manage clinical operations for Pine Marsh. I need the release status. The shipment remains under seizure." A breath, then silence. "How long?" "We have a transfer deadline at 7:30. We are reviewing whether part of the shipment can be released before then. A part of it will not help unless the correct units are in that part. I have 8 clinics on temporary purification. The oldest system is already alarming every 30 minutes. Grant said, "How many patients are affected?" 86 on our network. More across the other centers. 12 are scheduled after 8 tonight. Some can be transferred, some cannot. Micah asked, "Do the centers have matching installation kits?" June paused. "Who is that?" "Micah Benton. I am reviewing the product configuration." Grant looked at him but did not correct the introduction. June said, "Each center has the Clearhaven hookup kit for the P-Series. The Q-Series requires a different pressure manifold. We did not order Q-Series units." Micah looked at Megan. "Say that again," he said. "We ordered P-Series systems. Every center has P-Series fittings." Megan searched the packing list. "The invoice says P-Series throughout." Micah pointed to the old ruling. "Then the first question is not whether the ruling applies. The first question is whether all 400 containers actually hold P-Series machines." Grant said, "Why would they not?" "Because someone changed the description to make 400 machines look like 400 identical tanks." Caleb's camera returned. His face had lost color. "My client is sending Marion Voss, Vice President of Compliance. She will be there within the hour." Grant said, "Did she make the change?" "She has authority to explain it." That was not the question. Caleb did not answer. Grant turned to Megan. "Physical inspection. 1 container from each block." Micah said, "Start with one from Block A. If the serial range matches the ruling, then sample Block B. Do not break 4 seals before you know what you are looking for." Grant stood. "You are still here on 10 minutes. Then 8 of them were useful." Megan almost smiled. Grant did not. He pointed at Micah. "You enter the yard only with an escort. You touch nothing. You speak when asked." Micah picked up his broom from the hallway. "What are you doing?" "Putting this where no one trips over it." He set it behind the security desk, then followed them toward the north inspection yard. Outside, dawn had begun to color the edge of the Atlantic, but the container stacks still stood beneath floodlights. Block A rose 4 units high, each steel box marked with Clearhaven seals and white shipping labels. Peter Crowell waited beside the inspection cage in a reflective vest. He had worked the port long enough to distrust every emergency that arrived in a clean shirt. "Which one?" Peter asked. Megan read from the list. "Container CSU 618205. Peter checked the yard terminal. "Row 2, ground position, 40 yards. That is unusual luck." "It is not luck," Micah said. "Medical systems are usually loaded for early access." Peter looked him over. "You with Clearhaven?" "No." "Customs?" "No." "Then what are you?" Micah watched the crane spreader descend over the target container. "Someone who knows what should be inside." Peter gave Grant a look that asked whether this was now standard federal procedure. Grant ignored it. The container doors opened at 8:20. Cold air rolled out first. Then the inspection lights revealed a white frame machine secured on a steel shipping base. Two vertical membrane housings stood behind a control cabinet. A short buffer vessel occupied one side, no larger than a commercial refrigerator. Micah stayed behind the yellow line. Megan asked, "What do you need to see?" "Nameplate, pump assembly, membrane rack, control model." Peter climbed inside with a body camera. He read each marking aloud. Clearhaven P260, dual pump, membrane assembly R8, controller CX12. Megan compared the information with the ruling. "It matches." Grant stepped closer to the container. "So we have confirmed that the declared code was wrong." "For this unit," Micah said. Caleb was listening through Megan's tablet. "That is enough to amend the entry. The remaining units are the same product." Micah looked at the 4 container blocks. "Maybe." Caleb said, "You wrote the ruling. I wrote it for a product that matched the facts in front of me. And this product matches. This one does." Grant asked, "What would make the others different?" Micah pointed toward the serial plate Peter had just read. "A different membrane core, a different pressure controller, a different intended use. Any change that affects the machine's identity or function." Megan said, "You wrote conditions into the ruling?" "I should have." The answer landed with more weight than the question. Before Megan could ask what he meant, her tablet chimed. The access log had finished restoring deleted events. One line appeared in red. At 2:08 that morning, the user who changed all 400 entries had also opened a quality control report. The report number ended in 612. The username was Marion Voss. Marion Voss arrived at 9:12 in a black sedan that stopped beside the customs gate without touching the curb. She stepped out carrying one leather folder and no visible panic. Her silver hair was pinned at the back of her neck. Her suit was plain, expensive, and chosen to suggest that nothing in the world could surprise her before breakfast. Grant met her in the inspection office. Caleb remained on the video wall. Micah stood near the back, beside a rack of safety helmets. Marion placed her folder on the table. "Director Hollis, Clearhaven accepts that an incorrect commodity description was transmitted. We are prepared to correct it immediately." Grant said, "You transmitted it." My credentials were used." "Were they used by you?" "Yes." The room tightened around the answer. Caleb closed his eyes for half a second. Grant said, "Why did you remove the ruling reference?" "Because the invoice description had been copied forward from an earlier shipment and did not reflect the current packaging configuration." Micah spoke from the wall. "Packaging does not change classification." Marion turned toward him. Her face changed before she could stop it. "Recognition first, then calculation." "Micah Benton," she said. Megan watched both of them. "You know each other." Marion recovered. "Mr. Benton once consulted for Clearhaven." "I ran classification," Micah said, "for a limited period. 4 years." Grant looked between them. "Did you know he wrote the ruling you deleted?" "I knew his name appeared in the supporting analysis." Micah said, "Why did you open Quality Report 612 before you changed the entry?" Marion's eyes shifted to Megan's tablet. "Internal quality reports are not customs records. They become relevant when you read one, and then hide the description of every unit in the shipment." Grant stepped between them with his voice, not his body. "Ms. Voss, you will answer questions through me. What is in Report 6-12? A routine storage variance. For which units? I would need the report in front of me." Megan turned the tablet so Marion could see the restored log. "You opened it for 6 minutes. I reviewed dozens of reports." Micah said, "Then 6 minutes was long enough to remember whether it covered 1 machine or 400. Marion looked at him for a long moment. "You have no license, no client, and no legal role in this review. That does not change what you opened. It changes whether you should be speaking." Grant said, "Not in this room." That was the first time he had defended Micah, though only by defending his own authority. Marion opened her folder and removed a consulting agreement. "Clearhaven is willing to retain Mr. Benton for a technical review. The rate is substantial. The agreement includes standard confidentiality terms." She slid it across the table. Micah did not touch it. "You changed 400 entries before sunrise," he said. "Now you want to pay the man who noticed. I want qualified analysis on record. Then give Customs Report 6-12. That report concerns proprietary testing. Then keep your money." Megan's expression changed. Until that moment, she had seen knowledge. Now she saw a choice. Grant pushed the agreement back toward Marion. You will provide the report under summons if necessary. Until then, the seizure stands. Marion's calm finally thinned. Director, these machines are going to medical facilities. Your refusal to release them has consequences. Your decision to falsify their description has consequences. I corrected an inaccurate filing. Micah said, no, you made a machine disappear inside the word tank. Marion turned to him. You always did prefer a moral sentence to an operational solution. Micah's face remained still, but Megan saw his right thumb press against the side of his index finger. A small movement, a remembered wound. Grant ordered Marion to remain available, then sent Megan to compare the ruling with the current engineering documents. They returned to the annex conference room. This time, Micah was given a chair. Megan opened the old ruling on one screen and the Clearhaven specifications on another. The P-series matches, she said. Frame size, pump count, membrane housing, control architecture. Caleb nodded from the monitor, then released the shipment under the ruling. Micah said, not yet. Caleb exhaled sharply. You have spent the morning proving the ruling applies. I proved it applies to the unit we opened. The invoice says all units are P-series. The entry also said all units were steel reservoirs. Megan scrolled through the ruling attachments. There are 11 supporting files. Product literature, schematic, bill of materials, laboratory data, photographs. Micah stared at the list. There should be a serial condition. There is not. Then it is missing, Grant said. Or you remember writing something you never filed. Micah did not answer. Caleb leaned toward his camera. Mr. Benton, if your own ruling contains no limitation, Customs can rely on it. Micah looked at the first inspected machine on the body camera feed. A ruling is not a magic word. If the facts change, the result can change. Are you arguing against release now? I am arguing against pretending a piece of paper can see through steel. Megan said, we can pull the container manifest by serial range. Peter joined by radio from the yard. I have scans from the gate. They are not clean. Some labels were applied over older labels. Grant pressed the speaker key. How many? I do not know yet. The scanner captured both layers on several units. Micah stood. Send every serial to the conference room. Grant looked at him. Micah corrected himself. Please. Peter transmitted the file. 400 container numbers filled the screen. Beneath each was a machine serial range. Most began with P2. 17 began with Q1. They were scattered through all 4 blocks. Megan counted twice. 17, Caleb said. That could be an internal inventory designation. Micah shook his head. Q-Series uses a different pressure manifold. Pine Marsh said it did not order Q-Series. Grant asked, can the Q-Series still be classified under the same heading? Maybe. Classification is not the first problem anymore. What is? Why someone hid 17 different machines among 383 that match the ruling. Megan opened Clearhaven's product catalog. No Q-Series appeared on the public site. Marion had called it a packaging change. The serials said otherwise. The law does not become honest because the file looks orderly. At 10:20, Grant authorized inspection of one Q-Series container. It was located in Block D, 3 rows from the north fence and beneath another container. Moving it required a crane window, a safety team, and a temporary halt to outbound traffic through Gate 4. The delay would cost 40 minutes. June called again before the crane moved. The temporary plant at Weller Clinic has started a conductivity alarm, she said. We can keep patients on treatment for now, but we cannot start the afternoon group unless replacement systems are on the road by 7:30. Grant said, we have identified a smaller group that may require separate review. How small? 18 units. Then release the rest. We do not yet have the legal basis to separate the entry. June's voice hardened. I do not need a lesson in entries. I need clean water. Micah leaned toward the conference phone. Ms. Maddox, are the installation teams staged? At every center. If 382 units are released by 7:20, how many centers can receive before 10? All of them if the convoy leaves together. The farthest clinic is 2 hours and 12 minutes away. And if they leave after 7:30, the warehouse transfer adds at least 6 hours. We lose tonight. Grant said, we understand. June replied, no. You understand a schedule. I know the names on it. The line went quiet again. Micah glanced toward the clock. 6 years earlier, another clock had been running, another shipment, another warning that had arrived late in the day. He forced his attention back to the present. Megan was studying him. You knew Marion before the ruling. she said. Yes. Did she pressure you to classify something that did not match? We are not discussing that. We are if it explains why an attachment is missing. Micah's voice cooled. Find the Q-Series specifications. I am trying to find out whether I can trust you. Trust the documents. The documents were changed by one person and written by another. Both are standing in this building. Grant watched without interrupting. Micah said, I wrote the ruling for the P-Series. It was correct when I wrote it. Megan asked, what happened after? The Q container is moving. He stood and walked toward the door. Megan let him go, but the unanswered question followed him into the yard. The Q-Series container reached the inspection cage at 11:40. Peter cut the seal under camera. The doors opened. At first, the machine looked almost identical to the P-Series unit. White frame, twin pump housing, steel vessel, membrane rack. Then Micah saw the control cabinet. Closer, he said. Peter moved the camera. A narrow service panel carried a different model plate. Q180. Megan read the engineering sheet Marion had finally provided. Different pressure controller, different membrane core, Caleb said through the tablet, but still water purification machinery. The heading remains the same. The tariff heading may, Micah said. The ruling does not automatically cover it. Grant asked, is it safe? The model difference does not make it unsafe. Then what does? Peter crouched beside the cabinet. This label has been peeled. He pointed to a small temperature indicator near the service port. The top layer was new. Beneath it, the adhesive carried a darker rectangle where another indicator had been removed. Megan said, can the controller store transit temperature? Micah nodded. If Clearhaven did not disable the memory. Marion entered the inspection office behind them. You do not have authorization to access proprietary controller data. Grant turned. You were instructed to remain in the annex. My equipment is being opened. Your equipment is federal evidence. Micah looked at Marion. What did Report 6112 say? It documented a storage variance that was resolved. Resolved how? By quality review. Which quality reviewer? That is internal. Megan said Elliot Voss signed the release. For the first time, Marion lost control of her face. Only for a second. But it was enough. Grant said, your son? Marion did not answer. Micah said, open the service port. Grant looked at him. Can it be done without operating the unit? Yes. Read-only connection. The controller keeps the lowest recorded temperature in non-volatile memory. Marion stepped forward. That reading can be affected by sensor calibration. It cannot establish product failure. It can establish that your quality report mattered, Megan said. Grant authorized the read. Peter connected a customs inspection tablet through an isolated adapter supplied by Clearhaven. Micah remained outside the yellow line and talked him through the menu. Service mode. I see it. Transit log. Open. Read the minimum temperature. Peter stared at the number. -11 degrees Celsius. Megan checked the storage limit on the specification. The membrane core cannot go below -4. Caleb muted his microphone. Grant faced Marion. How many units recorded that variance? The report covered a storage zone, not individual units. How many? 17. The answer settled over the inspection cage. The same 17 hidden behind the Q serials. June called at noon. Grant told her that most units appeared safe, but 17 required continued detention. Then let the others go, she said. Grant repeated that the entry was still legally unified. June did not argue this time. She simply asked for the name of the person responsible for the delay. Grant said the investigation was ongoing. Then I will give you names instead, June replied. Lena Brooks, Samuel Price, Marjorie Hale, Daniel Cross. Those are 4 patients at Weller Clinic who cannot be moved safely after dark. When you decide what a document allows, remember that the document is not the only thing waiting. She ended the call. No one spoke for several seconds. Megan looked at Micah. We need a legal way to split the shipment. He said the serial condition should be in the ruling file. It is not. Then search the archived correspondence, not the published ruling. Why would the condition be in correspondence but not in the ruling package? Micah looked through the inspection cage toward the Q-Series machine. Because I filed it after the ruling. Megan waited. Why? Because I learned the first version was not enough. There it was. Not the whole truth, but the first piece he had stopped hiding. At 12:20, Megan requested the archived correspondence from CBP records. The system estimated 2 hours for retrieval. Grant looked at the clock. We do not have 2 hours to search for a document that may not exist. Caleb returned to the call. We have 3 inspected P-Series units that match the ruling and 1 Q-Series unit with a separate quality issue. Release the shipment, place a hold on the 17 Q containers, and correct the entry after movement. Grant said, I cannot release line items that are not legally separated. You can exercise enforcement discretion, not when the importer intentionally collapsed 2 product groups into one false description. Micah paced once to the window and back. The clock above the door read 1:15. June's farthest clinic needed 2 hours and 12 minutes. The warehouse deadline remained 7:30. The safe path required a document that might arrive too late. The fast path required trust in a sample. Micah had stood at this kind of intersection before. The room, the year, and the people were different. The pressure felt exactly the same. He turned to Grant. We have checked enough. Release all 400 under the P-Series ruling. Put a destination hold on the 17 Q serials and inspect them after delivery. Megan stared at him. No. The centers need the equipment. We inspected 3 P units out of 382. We inspected 1 Q unit out of 17. The P serial range is consistent. The paperwork was manipulated by Marion to hide the Q units. That does not make the P units defective. Megan stood. You just told me a ruling cannot see through steel. Micah's voice sharpened. We have checked enough. The rest belongs to the same shipment. The sentence came out with the old rhythm. Confident, final, convenient. Megan heard more than the words. Do not say that as if the shipment is one thing, she said. That is how the 17 disappeared. Micah looked at the clock again. If we wait for perfect certainty, people miss treatment. Grant said, Mr. Benton, are you willing to state on record that the remaining P units match the inspected sample? A warning moved across Micah's face. Then June's list of names returned to him. Lena, Samuel, Marjorie, Daniel. Yes, he said. Megan whispered, You do not know that. Micah answered without looking at her. I know enough. Grant authorized preparation of a conditional release order while Peter began moving the first Q container away from the inspection cage. For 11 minutes, it appeared Micah had saved the day. Then Peter's radio cracked through the conference speaker. Stop the Gate 4 transfer. Stop it now. Grant grabbed the handset. Reason. The Q unit we inspected is not the only one with a replaced temperature label. I found the same adhesive pattern on a P-Series crate, already moved to the convoy lane. Micah went still. Grant said, Which container? Peter read the number. It belonged to the P-Series group Micah had just declared consistent. Megan pulled the serial record. The machine inside was listed as P-Series, but the controller service log showed a Q-Series firmware identifier. Someone had changed more than the tariff description. They had changed at least one product label. Grant canceled the release order. Security, remove Mr. Benton from the operational area. Micah did not resist. Megan did. He is the reason we found the difference. He is also the reason a suspect unit reached the convoy lane. Micah looked at Megan. He is right. No, he is angry. And he is right. Grant's voice stayed level. 12 treatments were just canceled, while we followed a conclusion Mr. Benton could not support. He leaves now. As security approached, Micah took the red pencil from his pocket and wrote 17 container numbers on the printed yard map. Then he added the P-Series container Peter had flagged. 18. He set the pencil on the map. Check the controller firmware, not the shipping label, he said. Grant pointed toward the door. Micah walked out. Outside the annex, the harbor had turned bright and hard under the afternoon sun. Micah collected his broom from the security desk. No one asked him to finish the corridor. No one needed to. The message was clear. He pushed the cleaning cart toward the contractor gate, while forklifts moved behind the fence and cranes crossed above him like enormous clock hands. At the gate, Sadie Benton stood beside the vending machines with a paper lunch bag and 2 bottles of water. She had taken the city bus from school after Micah failed to answer 3 messages. They said you were in a federal inspection, she said. Micah stopped. Who said that? The security officer who would not let me inside. Are you in trouble? No. Sadie looked at the escort walking 10 steps behind him. That answer needs work. Micah took the lunch bag. It was the same one he had left on the kitchen counter before dawn. I was helping them read a shipment file. Just helping? Yes. You always say just before the thing you actually care about. Just reading, just checking, just fixing something nobody asked you to fix. Micah looked toward the yard. I made a mistake. Sadie waited for more. A serious one? Serious enough. Today or before? He finally looked at her. She had her mother's way of asking a question without giving him a place to hide. Both, he said. Sadie nodded slowly. Then tell them both. It is not that simple. You say that when simple is painful. The escort looked away, pretending not to hear. Sadie placed one bottle of water in the cart cup holder. You taught me that being ashamed is not the same as being useless. I taught you that? After I failed algebra. You did not fail algebra. You failed one test. That was your exact point. She stepped back toward the bus stop. Do not make me believe something about you that you refuse to believe about yourself. Micah watched her leave. Inside the conference room, Megan compared controller firmware records against the gate scans. Peter's discovery changed the count again. 18 Q-series labels. 1 P-series label covering Q-series firmware. Possibly more. Marion sat at the far end of the table, with Caleb beside her on the monitor. Grant stood at the window, listening to June cancel treatment appointments one by one. June's voice came through the speaker. Lena Brooks moves to St. Arden at 6. Samuel Price cannot travel because of his cardiac monitor. Marjorie Hale is being sent home until morning. Daniel Cross is staying in the chair while we decide whether we can complete his cycle. She stopped. The next breath broke. I told his wife we had replacement systems coming. Grant lowered his eyes. June recovered before anyone could comfort her. Tell me the truth. Are they coming? I do not know yet, Grant said. Thank you. That is the first useful answer I have received in an hour. The call ended. Megan turned to Marion. How many product labels were changed? I did not authorize product label changes. Your quality report covered 17 Q units. Peter found an 18th unit with Q firmware and a P label. Marion looked genuinely surprised. Caleb said, we need to suspend this interview until Clearhaven can conduct an internal review. Grant faced the monitor. Clearhaven's internal review created the problem. Megan opened the audit trail for Report 6-12. The report was created by Elliot Voss at 1:36 this morning. It listed 17 serial numbers. At 2:08, Marion changed the customs entry. At 2:21, someone in plant operations printed replacement product labels. Marion said, that was not me. The print request came from Elliot's credentials. Her face tightened. Grant said, call him. He is not part of this customs review. His credentials changed evidence inside a seized shipment. Call him. Marion remained still. Megan reached for the conference phone. I can ask enforcement to call him. No. Marion said the word too quickly. Then she took out her phone. Elliot answered on the fourth ring, so Marion put him on speaker but kept the phone close to herself. Elliot, Customs found a relabeled controller in one of the P-series containers. Did you order replacement labels? Silence. Elliot, I printed labels, he said. His voice was younger than anyone expected. I did not apply them. Megan asked. How many? 17. Then why did we find an 18th Q firmware identifier? Another silence. Marion said, do not speculate. Elliot replied, there was a prototype mixed into the P shipment. It was already labeled P-series before the storage event. Grant said, was that prototype included in Quality Report 6-12? No. Was it tested? Not fully. Marion closed her eyes. The hidden problem was now larger than the report she had tried to conceal. Micah had been wrong to treat the P group as uniform. Marion had been wrong to assume she knew the entire defect population. Grant said, transmit every controller firmware record, manufacturing serial, temperature log, and label print record to Customs now. Marion said, Elliot, send nothing until Council reviews it. Caleb spoke at once. That is correct. Preserve the records, but do not transmit privileged communications. Elliot's voice shook. The test logs are not privileged. Marion leaned toward the phone. I am protecting you from making this worse. You changed the customs file. To give us time to replace the damaged units? You said the port delay would last 6 hours. It should have. People are missing treatment. Marion's control broke, not into anger, but fear. If the contract is canceled, those centers wait months for another supplier. If the board reports that you released damaged systems, your career ends before it begins. I was trying to correct the units before anyone was harmed. Elliot said, someone is already being harmed. The line went dead. Megan checked her inbox. A file transfer had begun. Elliot had sent the records. Marion stared at the phone in her hand. The person she had built the entire deception to protect had become the person who opened it. At 3:10, the first manufacturing records arrived. Megan mapped firmware identifiers against container numbers. 18 units required detention, not 17. 381 appeared consistent with the P-Series ruling, but appearance was not enough. Grant still needed a lawful basis to separate them from the false unified entry. The archive request remained pending. At 3:40, Peter radioed from the yard. Warehouse transfer crew is staging at Gate 4. Once they start, I cannot guarantee the blocks stay accessible in serial order. Grant answered, hold movement until further notice. I can hold for safety review. I cannot cancel a federal transfer order. I know. Megan stared at the missing attachment list. There were 11 attachments in the published package, she said. The archive index shows 12 content hashes. Grant turned. One file is absent. Yes, but the archive has not released it. Can you identify the sender? M. Benton, sent 6 years ago, 3 days after the ruling was issued. Grant looked toward the empty chair where Micah had been sitting. Megan said, bring him back. He gave us an unsupported conclusion that nearly released a mislabeled unit. And he told us an attachment existed before the archive confirmed it. Knowledge is not authority. No. But knowledge can tell us where to look before authority runs out of time. Grant checked the clock. 4:05. He called security. Micah was not at the contractor gate. He was in the employee parking area, sitting in his old sedan with the driver's door open and the lunch bag untouched beside him. Grant and Megan found him there. Micah did not rise. Grant stopped 6 feet away. The archive index shows a 12th attachment. Micah looked at Megan. Did you open it? Not yet. Record says not release the file. Then you do not need me. Megan said, we found an 18th queue controller under a P label. Micah closed his eyes. The error had spread exactly where his certainty had refused to look. Grant said, we now have 382 likely P units and 18 detained units. At 7:30, the transfer order moves all 400. Tell me what is in the attachment. Micah remained seated. A serial limitation, he said. A requirement to review any change to the membrane core or pressure controller separately. Why was it filed after the ruling? Micah looked at the red dust on his work shoes. Because Bethany Rourke found a serial mismatch in another shipment. Megan waited. Grant said, who was Bethany Rourke? My analyst. What happened? Micah's answer came quietly. I received her email at 6:18 in the evening. She said 7 units used a revised controller that was not in our ruling request. Marion wanted the entry filed before the cutoff. I signed at 6:26. Grant's face changed. Micah continued. The next morning, Customs questioned the serials. Clearhaven said Bethany had failed to update the product file. I knew that was false. Megan asked, did you say so? Not that day. When? 3 days later. What happened in those 3 days? Micah swallowed. Bethany's access was suspended. Her license application was frozen. She was escorted out while I sat in the same conference room and let Marion describe the error as hers. The parking lot seemed to go silent, though trucks still moved beyond the fence. Why did you wait? Grant asked. I told myself I needed documents. I told myself I could protect the department if I fixed the ruling first. I told myself 8 minutes was not enough time to check every warning. Micah looked up. The truth is that I was afraid of losing my position. Megan said, and you lost it anyway, after I deserved to. I filed the serial condition. I admitted I signed after Bethany warned me. Clearhaven removed me. The licensing board accepted my surrender. Bethany had already paid the price. Grant asked, why did you not tell us this morning? Because knowing the code does not erase what I did with it. Your confession does not release these containers. It should not. Micah stood at last. A code is only honest when it matches what is inside. That includes the name at the bottom. Grant looked at him for a long moment. Come back inside. Micah shook his head. I am not your expert. No. You are the witness who knows what Attachment 12 was meant to do. That is narrower, and right now, it is enough. Back in the annex, the transfer crew checked in at Gate 4. Peter called from the crane terminal. Director, I need a decision. They are asking me to unlock Block A. Grant said, keep it locked. On what authority? Mine. That will put the delay under your badge number. Use it. Peter entered the hold. The crane icons on the yard map froze. For the first time that day, Grant had placed his own position inside the risk. At 4:35, he gathered everyone in the conference room. Marion sat with counsel. Megan stood beside the archive terminal. Micah remained near the door. Peter listened by radio. June waited on the conference phone. Grant spoke plainly. We have two defensible choices. First, keep all 400 containers under seizure until every unit is examined. That protects the investigation and causes the medical network to miss tonight's delivery window. Second, release the units that appear to match the P-Series ruling. That serves the clinics but risks moving another mislabeled or damaged machine. June said, there has to be a third choice. Grant looked at Micah. He says there was one. We do not yet possess the document that proves it. Micah said the attachment separated classification by serial-controlled configuration. If the membrane core or controller changed, the importer had to identify those serials for separate review. Caleb said, a post-ruling letter may not have binding effect. Megan replied, it was submitted to Customs and assigned an archive hash. That does not tell us whether Customs accepted it. Grant said, correct. He looked at Micah. Here is the choice. I can hold the shipment and protect the law as written in the file we have. Or I can act on a missing document described by a man who admitted giving an unsupported conclusion less than 4 hours ago. Which risk are you asking me to own? Micah did not answer quickly. The old version of him would have argued harder. He would have made certainty sound like courage. This time, he looked at what he did not know. Do not release anything on my word, he said. June inhaled sharply over the phone. Micah continued, give Megan until the transfer crew begins physical movement. If the attachment arrives and shows acceptance, split the line items. If it does not, keep the seizure. Grant said, that may cost the clinics the window. Yes. You are willing to let that happen? No. I am willing to stop pretending my willingness changes the evidence. Megan looked at the archive terminal. 5:20. A notification appeared. Archive release complete. She opened the 12th attachment. The first page carried Micah's signature. The second carried a customs receipt stamp. The third contained a serial-controlled configuration table. Megan read aloud. Any unit incorporating a membrane core, pressure controller, or intended use not identified in the submitted configuration shall not rely on this ruling without separate disclosure and review. She read the final line twice. Accepted and associated with ruling record. Caleb leaned toward the screen. That allows separate disclosure. It does not automatically release the rest. Micah said no. The corrected entry does that. Megan turned to Grant. We have verified firmware and serial records from Elliot. We can create 2 groups, 382P configuration units, 18Q configuration, or mislabeled units. Grant asked Caleb, how fast can you amend 382 line items? With Clearhaven authorization, 30 minutes. Marion said, I do not authorize any filing that implies the P-Series units are unaffected before our board reviews the data. Caleb looked at her. The importer of record can authorize through another officer. I am the compliance officer. A new voice came through Megan's computer. Elliot had joined the secure call. The chief operating officer signed the authorization, he said. I sent it with the manufacturing logs. Marion stood. Elliot, end this call. No, you do not understand what the board will do. I understand what I signed. I released 17 damaged systems. I also failed to flag the prototype. That is mine. I was trying to keep one error from destroying your life. Then you should have let me tell the truth before you changed 400 records. Marion's eyes filled, but she did not cry. She sat down slowly. The person she had tried to save had chosen accountability over protection. Grant turned to the room. We split the entry. 18 remained detained. 382 proceed only after line-level correction, bond validation, and physical isolation. Peter, can you isolate 18 containers before 7? Peter answered through the radio. They are across all 4 blocks. I need the crane priority and no competing moves. You have both. Then give me the serial list. Megan printed it. Micah reached for the red pencil on the yard map. He stopped before touching it. Grant saw him. Use it. Micah marked the 18 positions. At 5:48, the yard shifted into emergency procedure. Peter stood at the crane terminal with the map beside him. Megan verified container numbers from the customs system. Micah read firmware identifiers from Elliot's file. Grant approved each hold. Caleb's team corrected the entry line by line. The work became a sequence of short commands. Up Block A, Row 3. Confirmed. Lift the top unit. Clear. Read the container number. CSU 618233. Hold it. Held. Next serial. Q180 ending 604. Block B, ground position. Moving. Stop. Stopped. A tractor entered the wrong lane. Peter hit the safety lock. Clear the lane. Lane clear. Resume. Resuming. At 6:12, 7 suspect containers stood inside the red inspection boundary. At 6:29, 12 were isolated. At 6:38, Caleb reported that 382 corrected line items had passed the entry validation. Grant asked, "Bond?" "Confirmed." "Medical consignee records?" "Confirmed." "Seal reconciliation?" Megan scanned the list. 3 discrepancies. The room froze. Micah said, "Which blocks?" "A, C, and D." Read the old seal and new seal pairs. Megan did. Micah checked Elliot's label print log. "Those are the 3 units opened at the plant for controller replacement. 2 are Q series. 1 is the mislabeled prototype. They are already on the hold list." Megan verified the serials. "He is right." Grant said, "Record the reconciliation and continue." At 6:44, 17 containers were isolated. The final suspect unit sat on top of a P-series container in Block C. The crane operator reported a spreader fault. Peter's voice came over the radio. "Manual reset takes 10 minutes." Grant looked at the clock. "We have 6. Peter said, "The secondary crane can reach it, but I have to move that crane across the convoy lane." June was still on the phone. "The first trucks need to leave by 7:22, she said. "Any later, and Weller Clinic misses the treatment window." Micah studied the yard map. "Close the convoy lane now," he said. "Move the secondary crane across, lift the suspect unit into the red boundary, then reopen the lane before the tractors stage." Peter replied, "That gives us 1 pass. If the crane stops in the lane, the convoy does not move." Grant faced the choice. Wait for the first crane and lose the medical window, or risk blocking the only outbound route with the second. This time, every unknown had a name. "Move the crane," Grant said. "The risk is under my badge." Peter called the commands. Convoy lane closed. Secondary crane moving. Crossing clear. Spreader down. Container locked. Lift. The suspect container rose from Block C and crossed the lane. At 6:55, it touched down inside the red inspection boundary. 18th suspect unit isolated, Peter said. Convoy lane reopening. Megan counted the release list again. 382 units can move. Caleb confirmed the final amendment. At 6:59, Grant signed the split detention and release orders. He used his own badge credentials. At 7:03, the first tractors aligned beneath the outbound lights. At 7:14, Megan confirmed every released container against the amended list. At 7:20, Peter opened Gate 4. The first truck moved, then the second. Then a continuous line of white Clearhaven containers rolled toward the highway. At 7:22, the convoy cleared the customs boundary. 8 minutes remained before the warehouse transfer deadline. June stayed on the phone until the last truck passed the gate. "Weller confirms an arrival estimate of 9:34, she said. "Installation teams are ready." Grant sat down for the first time in hours. Megan closed the release screen. Micah put the red pencil beside the keyboard. Marion remained under supervision while enforcement collected her access devices. Elliot's files were transferred to investigators. Caleb agreed to preserve all Clearhaven records and correct the remaining entry data. No one celebrated. 12 treatments had been canceled. 18 units remained suspect. Bethany Rourke had lost years that no corrected record could return. But 382 machines were moving toward people who needed them. The system had not been defeated. It had been forced to become precise. Before Micah left, Grant stopped him in the corridor, where the seizure notice had blown loose that morning. "Enforcement will refer Marion's actions for investigation," Grant said. "The licensing board will receive your statement and the archived attachment. We will also send the record to Bethany Rourke." Micah nodded. "Do not promise me what they will do." "I was not going to." "Good." Grant looked at the gray work shirt, the worn shoes, and the broom waiting against the wall. "You were right about the tariff code." Micah shook his head. "I was right about a machine. Then I was wrong about a shipment. Both can be true. They usually are." Grant glanced towards the yard, where 18 red holds remained on the screen. The law did not need a hero today. It needed someone willing to say where his certainty ended. Micah picked up the broom. "That took me longer to learn than the code." At 5:58 the next morning, Micah returned to the North Customs Annex. The harbor lights were fading. Dawn spread across the empty spaces in blocks A, B, C, and D. 382 positions stood open. 18 suspect containers remained marked in red. On Micah's cleaning cart lay a copy of the release order. Beside it was his red grease pencil. Grant stood near the security desk with a paper cup of coffee. "You left that," he said. Micah picked up the pencil. The release order listed the source of technical analysis in full. Micah Benton. Not M. Benton. Not contractor. Not former broker. His name. Grant said records asked whether they should list your current title. What did you tell them? That your title was not the evidence. Micah placed the pencil behind his ear. Outside the gate, Sadie waited with 2 coffees and her school bag. She held up 1 cup when she saw him. A dock clerk passed through the corridor and nodded. "Morning, Mr. Benton." Another worker followed. "Morning, Micah." Micah looked once through the windows at the open yard and the 18 containers that had not been allowed to disappear inside a larger number. Then he lowered the broom to the floor. The bristles moved through the first strip of morning light. A code is only honest when it matches what is inside.